So the speakers who sit over here are going to be unmasked. Are you guys all okay with that? Okay. I think with that, we might as well just start. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us today. So my name is Merle Massie. I'm the coordinator for undergraduate research here at the University of Saskatchewan. And with me is Jenelyn Santos, and Jenelyn runs the OPUS program. So what we thought is that before we get started on our conversation today, we have a personnel hiccup. A person is missing. However, we have other people who have many things to talk to you about. So we thought that we would just at the last minute change things up just a little bit. And so I'm going to talk first, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the SURE program. So the Student Undergraduate Research Experience program here at the University of Saskatchewan was started in the summer of 2020, so right in the pandemic. So it's been online. So we're just now transitioning to do some in-person events, such as this one. So thank you for being with us today. So the whole hybrid event thing, there's some technical aspects that we haven't quite worked out fully, but so SURE is for undergraduate students who are conducting research on campus, research, scholarly, artistic, or applied projects, and we're fine with any of those. Research seems to be kind of the more limited word. How about we're creating something new there? That if you're creating something new that didn't exist before, then you belong with us in SURE. So it is a 10-hour co-curricular program, and we run it through a whole series of webinars and trainings. Students can have, we try and meet students where they are. So if you're brand new to doing new knowledge creation, and you're in the library and you're reading a lot of journal articles and you need a lot of help and support with communications, then you can kind of focus more of your time there. If you've come back a second or a third year, I've seen that as well. And a student might be more interested in some of the more professional development and sort of the stepping off point to into their work life. And that's where the entrepreneurship modules come in. So what we've done is that we've partnered with all kinds of experts across the university. So from the library, from career services, research excellence and innovation, which is why Jenelyn is here. And we have a whole bunch of modules. And so we record them, including this one, and they will be posted to our SURE website. And so what we try and do is that because we're meeting students where they are, sometimes you guys are in the field while we're here doing these sorts of things, or you're head down in the lab and you're running gels and you're doing bench work and you can't chime in with us when we're here in person. That's okay. We try and record everything and then upload it to our YouTube site so that you guys can access it whenever it works into your schedule. Also, we also give you credit if you've done a lot of work. Let's say we've got students across campus who've had to learn Python or MATLAB or any of those sorts of things, and they're investing hours and hours into learning things that even Excel, something that might be new to them. Those hours count towards your professional, towards your research management, actually. So we've got 3 baskets: communication, research management, and professional and entrepreneurial development. Those are our 3 baskets. But we do have a couple of students who are here live. How hard was it to come up with your 10 hours?
Oh man, like personally just ask right now. I mean, I guess it was definitely like, it took some time and like I had to attend a few different events, but in terms of like me personally, I was just really interested in this stuff. So I kind of wanted to do some of it anyways. So I guess it was time consuming, and it did help develop like some really good ideas and like some good skills and things. But it's exciting enough that it wasn't necessarily like super hard for me, as in like I couldn't do. It was like, I'm happy that I have even more reason to do this.
we're so pleased to have you. So thank you very much. It sounds to me when I ask the students when they apply for their co-curricular credit, because that's what we do. So when you've completed your 10 hours at the end of the term, you can apply to me for co-curricular credit. I'll upload it to the University of Saskatchewan system, and that will show up right on your transcript. And one of the advantages of doing it that way is that students can do it when it works for them. We meet the students where they are. They can put those hours in wherever they need it, in whether perhaps someone has to do 4 hours of ethics modules, and pass their ethics and that kind of thing. So we try and hit students where they are, and create a flexible program. But the key for me is being the spider. So as the spider, I get to connect in, and I'm not the expert talking on all of these sessions. I connect in with experts across the campus and off campus. And today we have Jenelyn who's with us, and Jenelyn has a really exciting program that just launched this summer for students across campus and postdocs and faculty. And Jenelyn, take it away.
Thank you so much, Merle. Oh, have I got so much to tell you. So as Merle said, my name is Jenelyn Santos. I am the program coordinator for a new startup incubator here on campus called OPUS. So earlier this year, the university has adopted a new approach to intellectual property, and that really embraces inventor ownership. So with that decision, with that focus, what we found is that you really need some resources to help support these future founders, academic entrepreneurs, emerging entrepreneurs. And so that's where OPUS had come about. Yes, thank you very much for pointing that out. So really that idea of come to OPUS, what we're gonna do is we're gonna help you build your business acumen. It's really a pre-accelerator program to help academic founders such as yourselves really consider pursuing entrepreneurship as that pathway to commercialization, as one of the pathways to commercialization. So OPUS is really providing you that access to programming, access to infrastructure, and access to a huge network of entrepreneurs, mentors, coaches, and really innovation advisors to help you on that pathway, whichever way that you go with that. So with that, we did launch our pilot program. We're starting with about 12 to 14 entrepreneurs, individuals, and also team members with a focus on deep tech innovations. Now, you're probably asking, what is deep tech?
Oh, that's right. What? What's tech?
Yes.
Really?
Not just tech, it's deep tech.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so deep tech is essentially STEM-related innovations that is backed by research, right? And with that, there has a high potential for proprietary IP or intellectual property. So not only that, it really helps to solve global problems. So we're finding that a lot of advanced engineering and scientific innovations, that's where deep tech is. And that's something that there's a gap here, not just at the university, but in the overall ecosystem in Saskatchewan for entrepreneurship. So that's where we can help, really designed to fit the unique needs of you as academic founders, emerging entrepreneurs. People are really interested in that aspect of pathway to that commercialization. So we're going to be doing the program each year. Again, it's an 8-month program, which started this month. It will go on to the end of this year, beginning of next year, and then we are going to be inviting more people to apply. And so those eligible for the program are USask students, faculty and staff, as well as recent alumni within 5 years of graduation, who can apply to the program and get more information in terms of that business acumen piece, that understanding where your innovation, where your research fits in terms of pursuing entrepreneurship. So
I think that's fabulous, yeah. and that's a brand new program now. And that OPUS isn't necessarily connected to the SURE program, so I wanted to just talk about some of the entrepreneurship modules as well that we have going on with as part of the SURE program, because that's also coming from your shop, yes. Which is building OPUS. So if we could talk about those as well, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of the SURE programming, we really wanted to introduce you to the world of entrepreneurship, that entrepreneurial mindset, right? And so the part of that is where the whole idea of bringing in entrepreneurs to talk to you about their experiences, to talk to you about the challenges that they've encountered and have overcome with the help of a team, right? And so that's actually where the focus of today's discussion will be, and really helping you understand that it takes a village to raise, a child, that's the whole concept. But here it's really that team and making sure you have the right people in place. So in addition to that, we are providing also information and the webinars on introduction to intellectual property, business model canvas, that lean startup model. You'll learn more in a few weeks on that.
That's right.
Also market research and how to assess the ideas on that. Pathways to commercialization. We had a great presentation on that
really
last
awesome.
week. Yeah, just to understand, what are your different options available here. So,
and we really appreciate the students in the SURE program. Really appreciate the the entrepreneurship modules that we had last summer, and then refined and running them again this year, and then complementing them with these sort of Friday lunch and learns. So that's what this one is.
Yes.
And thank you very much. So question, so with OPUS, will any of the events be sort of available to sort of a larger crew? Can we come and watch maybe some of the pitches, things like that, that some of the students might be, or the people, the incubees, as you call them,
Yes,
might be coming in OPUS? Are there going to be ways for us to connect in with that?
I love how you think, Merle. So the short answer is yes. There will be a few events here and there that we are opening up to the greater university community. For the most part, because it is a pilot program, we're really focusing on making sure that we have the right resources and tools in place for the entrepreneurs. So definitely a majority of the workshops and webinars there will be strictly for the incubees. So that's part of the benefits of applying to this program, right? We're really designing it and customizing it to your needs and to your challenges that depending on what stage you're at. So,
well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And yes, speaking of team building, which is the theme of today, one of the things about the SURE program, the OPUS program, and our theme of our talk today in terms of building teams is not only do you have to connect in with other people and find people that have different skill sets and bring different backgrounds than what we do, but sometimes you have to manage things on the fly. And that
got to be agile
yes,
as an entrepreneur.
You have to be agile as an entrepreneur. And frankly, to just be working on campus, sometimes you have to be agile as well. And that's what we're going to roll into next. And we want to talk about team management and team building. And so with that, I'm actually going to invite Alix Hayden, who's the acting, so Jenelyn, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Merle.
We'll invite Alix to come on down. Awesome. See, someone with as much energy as me, I love it. Takes me right up. Alix, thank you so much for being with us today. You are going to be taking over the hosting duties here right away. And one of the, let's just do a little bit of a background. So our planned guest speaker for the day was unable to come. However, one of the things about ExcirWorks is that they're well known with research excellence and innovation and right across campus. So Alix is the acting director, interim director, something like that, with research excellence and innovation here on campus. And so Alix has had lots to do with ExcirWorks as it's been going on, and maybe we'll start with that. So let's just give the audience sort of that broad scale overview. What is ExcirWorks and how did it come to be?
Yeah, so Exir is a terrific example, and that's why we wanted to use them today. And I have with me another expert on their story that we will introduce shortly. So they're a great example of the theme today of building a team. And when we hear team building, I think we think of all these, we think of lots of exercises and activities and, I don't know, escape rooms and things like this. In the startup world, when we talk team, we're often, or almost always, talking about the idea that often there is someone with an idea who is leading on, wanting to start a company. And often they believe that they're going to be the CEO, they can do the whole thing. In an academic setting, often it's a researcher or a grad student that, has a vision for a company. And what they learn on their path, or what OPUS or other resources can help them learn, is that it takes a village, as Jenelyn said, is some awareness of what your weaknesses are as a potential entrepreneur, as well as how to complement that. And so we see a lot of folks that are deeply expert in a technical area that want to start a company and need to think about what aspects, what other skills they need and where they can find them and how they find them. And so the Exir story, Exir is a company that is based on an invention on research done here at the University of Saskatchewan by a chemistry professor named Stephen Foley, who is so super busy, he couldn't be here today. But our office, our job is to work with inventors on campus who can come and talk to us and tell us what their invention is. And then we can help look at that and say, is that something we can patent? Is that something that we can start a company based on? Is it something that we want to talk to other companies about if they want to use that technology? So Exir is built on an invention that I'm going to get my colleague to describe to you in a
And
little
I'm
more.
I'm going to step out and have Chris Bowman come in because Chris is the expert.
Chris is an expert. So welcome, Chris Bowman. So Chris is hi Chris. Chris is a technology transfer manager in our office. So everyone, when an inventor comes and tells us about their invention, someone like Chris works with them. And Chris worked on the technology here and Dr. Foley's technology that ExcirWorks was built on. It's a technology that allows extraction of gold and precious metals from consumer electronic waste. So we don't realize that, like, all of our, I didn't bring my device, all of our devices, all of our computers, all of these things, maybe you do know this, but all of the circuitry that makes that work, there's some precious metals in there that can be extracted and recycled and reused. And that process can be environmentally unfriendly. It can be difficult to make work. It can be super expensive. It can be dangerous in terms of the chemistry required. So all of those things are problems that Dr. Foley was looking to solve. Chris worked with Steve from day one when he came in to tell us about his invention, and together our office, and again, Chris led on helping Dr. Foley figure out what it might look like to start a company and what kind of team members they would need over time. And that was about 6 years ago now that all, well, no, the company started 6 years ago.
Yeah, it's more like 8 to 10 when they started the whole process.
Yeah. So give us a sense of what that was like when Steve first came to talk to you and tell you that he had an idea that he thought could be a company.
Well, I'm even going to go before me because it predates me a little bit. So Steve is a professor in chemistry. I'm not him. And his focus was on polymers. He was looking at plastics, how to deal with plastics, how to deal with breaking down plastics, different formulations of plastics, these kinds of things. He was contacted by a prospective graduate student from Iran who said, I want to come to you, but I want to work on precious metal chemistry. And Steve's first thought that he's told me was, I don't do precious metal chemistry. Why are you talking to me? But they talked, they got together, and Steve was like, yeah, I'll take a chance on this. So he brought him over as a PhD student, and then was informed, told, whatever, that he was, the student was working with another partner in Iran on some of this stuff. So they brought him over too as visiting faculty. So they brought Hiwa and Lockman, who was a faculty member at, I don't recall the name of the university in Iran, both over to work on this. And they came up with chemistry to dissolve. They were focused originally on gold. Gold is valuable because it doesn't corrode. It doesn't oxidize. You keep it around. It just lasts. And because of that, it's very difficult to dissolve. So you various acids can dissolve different kinds of metals. You can get them into solution. Gold is a in the class of metals that don't go into solution very easily. So the state of the art is this aqua regia, which is a very, very sort of toxic, nasty, very, very corrosive, dissolves everything, and also gold. So that was sort of the state of the art in chemistry, and it was sort of, everybody thought it was very well understood at the time. So they came over and they started working on chemical solutions to get gold into solution, and only the gold, and to be specific and be able to pull the gold out of whatever it was in and get it into a liquid form. And then once you have it in liquid, you can either precipitate it out or sort of get rid of the liquid somehow, and then you have sort of a refined gold alloy that you can then further refine, and it's valuable. So they work on this, and they come to the office and say, Steve will tell you this, so I feel I'm not speaking out of turn here. We need some money. You guys have any money?
So the first lesson in entrepreneurship, you need money, and you try to find it wherever you can.
there is so that we have the discussion with Steve about sort of what do you have, what's the invention, what can go on with this. We look at it, we say, oh yeah, there's some potential here. Let's put together sort of a plan of what we're going to do with this. We can do a little bit of funding, but not much, and sort of move things up to sort of what are you going to do with this. So they went through an earlier, I don't want to call it an earlier iteration of OPUS because it's really not the same thing, but 6-ish years ago, the university had a business plan competition. Tech Venture Challenge, I believe it was at the time. So they formed a team, said this is going to be the company, we're going to go through TBC.
So how did they decide who was going to be on the team?
It was them.
Those three.
So at that stage of technology development, it was the people that worked on this stuff every day. And that's all they had. They didn't have a budget, they didn't have money. They had a little bit of research funds that were sort of locked up at the university to do research with. So they were just, this is us. We're not paying anybody. We're not paying any salaries. We're just gonna bootstrap this. And they and we filed a patent on the original formulation of the chemistry to do this. And they sort of went through, they were sort of struggling for a business model. Their first focus was actually not in recycling, it was in mining. The gold mines, they use a lot of, the state of the art in gold mine is not aqua regia, because you run, Steve will be the first one again to tell you that gold mining is not what you think it is, where a guy sticks a pick in the ground and comes out with a nugget of gold at the end of it. They mine tons and tons and tons of rock, and the concentration of the gold in the rock is anywhere between like 1 part per million and 10 parts per million. So it's like grams per ton. So aqua regia is way too expensive to do that. You got to get all this rock, you got to crush it. So the standard in gold mining is in some ways worse. It's cyanide. Cyanide will very slowly leach gold into solution. So you get your tons of rock, you drop it in run it through a dilute cyanide solution. Every once in a while you'll hear the news stories of there was a leak and the lake is now dead. Kinds of environmental impact. So they're like, we're going to get rid of cyanide in gold mining. So they work through the chemistry, they get samples from dozens of different mines looking to partner with different mining companies, and they never quite sort of hit the niche, because despite the cyanide being very chemically toxic, it's really cheap. It's mostly water. Water's cheap. It's a little bit of cyanide mixed in. It's a dilute solution, and they just couldn't compete on cost with that. So they pivoted, and at about the same time, they realized they came to my office, and we were in the process of moving the patent forward into the next stage. And they're like, forget all that, we got a better way to do it. So brand new chemistry, totally different. We stuck it in and ended up dividing it into 2 patent claims. So now there's 2 methods, the old method and the new method. And the new method is like rocket fuel. It's like there are these videos that they had where they'd take a circuit board that was obviously gold. So you look at the various tracings and circuitry on the board, and you dip it in the new solution and you pull it out and there's no gold on it anymore.
In fact, there is evidence of that, because when they were still just that team, they added, I'll ask you about when they added, no, that's okay. You like to talk about the science, and so would Steve. They actually took this story to Dragon's Den. They were on Dragon's Den in 2017, I think. Yes. Or maybe early. Maybe it would have been fall 18. Maybe. Yeah, fall 18, and did that demonstration exactly what on TV. Chris is talking about on TV with the. But by that time, so they were starting to do this and going through business plan competitions, and so again, it's 3 scientists. It's a chemist and his 2 graduate students doing all this research. They're having to do all the research, and we talk in academic sort of startup world about lab to market. What's the path from the lab bench to the market where you're selling something that you invented, right? So as Chris is saying, the three scientists are trying to do all the research and they're thinking, you know, this could be a company and we could sell this. And I think one of the things that we think about at that stage is the research that you're doing. Is it something that is disruptive? So Chris is talking about what is the state of the current, how does somebody do this right now? And if the research is very disruptive and it's going to change it completely, often there's not a partner out in the world who is going to do that with you. So you have to make the company to do it. You have to start the company because there's nobody else doing it, right? So that's where we start thinking about the lab to market and the scientist as entrepreneur. And so yeah, they're at the stage where they have these three scientists who think that they have an idea that they want to start a company out of.
And now they need some money.
Now they need some money. So then what do they do?
So there was a period of sort of frustration there where they looked to pivot from mining to electronic waste because they realized that, you know, you get 50 grams per ton in mine ore and it's 500 or more grams per ton in like crushed up circuit boards because there's a fair amount of gold in them, or chips or what have you. So there's some frustration there. They're contacting lots of different partners and all the partners want something a little bit that fits in their sort of wheelhouse and they don't quite fit in their wheelhouse because this is often the case with disruptive technologies that all the existing technologies are tough for you to work with. So there was a period of sort of, we need a partner. Finally, they found a partner, an investor who wanted to put some money in, and great, we're up and running. And they partnered with this guy and launched the company and started their sort of initial forays into trying to produce something. There's a lot of infrastructure needed in chemistry, even this sort of relatively simple chemistry. So the pockets weren't deep enough. So this happens a lot in sort of the entrepreneurship area where you sort of go in rounds or stages, right? Where you get your sort of bootstrap funding and it gets you up to a certain level and you have to show some progress. And then you take that progress to the sort of next level of investors and see if you can induce any of them to take you up to the next level. And then they're at the end of their pocketbook and you've hopefully shown enough more progress that you can take this to somebody bigger and get your sort of, you know, Series A or what have you funding to sort of move things along. So they have their sort of initial angel, quote unquote, investor, and things are going all right. They are partnering with engineering firms to get the engineering done because these guys will be the first to admit they're chemists. They're good at lab chemistry, but sort of scale up is not their area of expertise. So they need some more expertise there. And there's personality issues. There are personality clashes, and this is often the case with sort of early stage investors. Is that they see a path that maybe nobody else sees, but they have a really hard time staying on the path sometimes. so there were a lot of sort of meandering moves, which led them to the Dragon's Den thing. So they had their initial funding, they had the engineering partner, they had a little bit of sort of team conflict going on, and they had a couple of sort of next level investors, and they said, well, why don't we, these guys are next level investors, why don't we throw ourselves up to them? So they put together their pitch, they went on Dragons. Then they were offered funding by the quote unquote dragons. In fact, I think
the literal dragons.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Literally.
But I think that I can't remember the actual sort of stat, but I think it was the first time that like they were all going to go in like 1/6 on a deal to support this. And as they were doing that, they were looking for sort of other team members who brings things to the table. And another investor came out of the onto their radar. And so now they had some choices to make. They had a bunch of different people that wanted to take them to the next level. So they sort of, locked themselves up, looked at the different options, and turned down the Dragon proposal because it came with an awful lot of strings attached that they weren't comfortable with. So they turned down the Dragon's Den offer, went with another funder, which involved them. I shouldn't say this in a University of Saskatchewan event, but involved them moving to Calgary. So they relocated to Calgary and brought in a new team member who was also an investor, who started as their CFO. And I was telling Alex beforehand, the team building lesson from ExcirWorks is that they went through sort of several different team structures, and at each stage their team structure was the one they needed at the time, and it was completely inappropriate for the next stage.
Was it the core 3 people, those inventors, that were sort of making those decisions about who to bring into the team, when to bring them in? Did they have other supports? Like, did you support them in that in any way?
No,
That's a good question. I don't know if it will pick up for audio. The question was, who's, as those different potential pathways open up and different investors and different team members come, sort of, they have these options. How are those 3 inventors, those initial 3 inventors, how are they making those choices, and do they need other supports?
Yeah, so we as a university got pretty closely involved in this one, as the university sort of REI, or at the time Innovation Enterprise, got really closely involved in this one. So I was working, a ton of my time on this one file, and the first investor got together with the 3 inventors to form a company. I don't know if I'm out of time, but got together to form a company. And we took a piece. The University of Saskatchewan took some ownership in that company. So there were the 5 partners, well, 6 partners, but one dropped off soon thereafter. And so the first stage was the 3 inventors and U of S bringing on the first investor, incorporating the company, and then it's the company making the decision sort of who to bring on next. So that was a corporate level decision. We were really heavily involved as the university through the office in lots of discussions with that, and which direction to go. There were a lot of contentious late night meetings of who is quitting. Nobody ever quit. And where it was going to go, but eventually they brought on new investment. Well, they hired the guy as CFO. His contract was that within 3 months he needs to bring in X dollars of investment, or else he was fired. So, but he had it all lined up beforehand anyway.
Great way to build a team. So a couple of things, Chris. So when they formed the company itself, I think one of the interesting things, and that is interesting hopefully for students, and as you think about sort of this lab to market concept, one of the things they did was Dr. Foley, Stephen, is still at the university. He remained at the university. He didn't go and run that company. He remains at the university as a technical advisor, as an advisor on the board. And it's the students that were actually, Hiwa and Logman were actually, and at that stage, the co-founders of the company. So that's another, I think Jenelyn brought that up when she was talking about OPUS, the idea that what members of that team are taking what roles. And for students, for undergraduate and graduate students, we often think about, career paths as being either working in academia or working in industry. But this story is a great example of sort of a path where you are still doing something research intensive. You're using your research expertise, working on something that you invented, and you're the employer, not the employee, right? You're starting your own business. So Hiwa and Logman were the folks in Calgary at the company, right? And
picked up their lives and moved to Calgary.
Yeah. Right. And so back to so a major turning point, I think, in that story is when the CFO that came on and said, I'm going to raise some money. And this is an individual then that comes with deep business expertise, investment expertise, you know, a lot of credentials around starting businesses and is himself an investor as well.
Yeah.
And so at that point, then what does the company start looking like after he comes on?
So the company goes from the sort of cowboy startup mode to much more disciplined startup mode. Which,
because that's what it needs at the time,
because that's
as
what
you
it
said.
needs at the time. And I don't want to go into too much dirty laundry, but almost immediately there's a conflict between the new CFO and the old CEO. So there is some, again, like I said, at each stage they had the team they needed, and then they grew to the next stage and it wasn't the right team. So there was some team changing. They ended up buying out the CEO that came in originally, went, promoted the new CFO to CEO. He's running the show now, and things are much more stable. And actually, they've been pretty successful. They're I don't know.
So I mean, they are a head count now. The entire company
20-something?
is 20, same thing. They have some huge facilities in Calgary. Steve Foley and I are on the board still as observers, or Steve's an advisor, I'm an observer. I took Chris's observer role because he had observed he had observed all the things.
I
And
observed the ugly parts.
yeah, when we were, the last time we had a tour of the facilities, as Chris said, there's a huge difference between something that you all as research students are working on in a lab at the university to what a commercial scale operation looks like. And I mean, it fills an entire enormous warehouse of chemistry and metal crushing and extracting. And you can see I'm the technical half of the conversation. Metal crushers and chemical things.
Noisy things.
Yes, exactly. But essentially, they've built out a 6-7 member executive team that all have, brought in additional investment, additional funding, created the operations of that organization, from quality assurance through safety and through more chemists and engineers. All these folks are now there in this organization in Calgary. I think one of the most recent accomplishments that was public was they have a deal, a partnership in place with the Royal Mint, the UK Royal Mint, for to use their process to extract gold from electronic waste or other precious metals as well, to produce environmentally friendly recycled coins and jewelry and things like this. So it's a, from our perspective, I think it's a success story in that 6 years on, the company is still running.
Yep.
Is running with a really professional level executive team. The two co-founders, Hiwan Logman, the students that were Stephen's students, are still there and are the members of the executive team. One's the chief technology officer, and one is I'm not going to remember titles. Sorry, they're both on the technical side, and they're still members of that executive team. The company is growing and on a trajectory for more exciting things. So from the perspective of something that grows at a university and goes from that benchtop scale to a massive, to scaled up to a commercial scale endeavor so that is 6 years from when the company was founded. That's a huge success in and of itself. Yeah. Another question from the floor.
Another question. Do you know how the transition was for the inventors in sort of relinquishing some of that control within their company? I know maybe this is a question for the inventors themselves, but do you know what their experience was like? Because oftentimes inventors have to give up some of that control of their baby, right?
Do you know why I love that question? Steve might, and I mean, I don't want to speak too much for those folks, but one reason I love that question is I believe very strongly that we are going to be able to ask those questions from the inventors at future USask events, because these are definitely, this is a story and folks that, we want to tap into. Chris, do you know sort of?
There were definitely 2 or 3 sort of major pivot points, right? Which
Yeah.
involved sort of leadership changes in the company where nobody really knew where they were going and people were sort of pulling in different directions. Everybody wanted something different, but they sort of got together. There's always this core team and they were always very like tightly linked together. Steve would joke at some of these times, it's like, it's Wednesday, he would quit again, but he never did.
And I think it speaks to the business leadership, right? That new CEO that came in and the team that he then built, because it was him that built that team then for them on the management side, the management team that is there now. And the way it's a unique person then that can work with scientists who feel ownership and they're experts in this. But there has to be a unique formula there or a positive formula where the scientist can be self-aware enough and trust the business folks that are coming in, that they know what they're doing. Yep. And that everybody has the same vision, that everybody, and that's really the job of the CEO who comes in, is to say, look, this is going to be our culture and our vision. We all want the same thing. We all want success for this. You know, we know where our goal is, and bringing along the scientists and bringing in new team and having everybody. So, I mean, this is like the critical turning point or one of the critical turning points when somebody with that kind of expertise and leadership, there's a point in the development of the company where that is absolutely critical, and the company won't go further if you don't have somebody who can do those things and bring those people kind of all under one tent and drive toward one goal. And that's a specific skill set that they couldn't have attracted in the days of Dragon's Den when they had no money, and they maybe didn't even need them, right?
Yeah, this is what I like. There's often lots of, you know, oh, why did we go in this direction back early? We should have just gone this way from the beginning. But you don't have the option to go in that way from the beginning, because you have to sort of set the base, like I said, to get the next rung up the ladder every time. So it's the people you have at the time may not be the people you need 5 years, 2 years, whatever down the road. And it can be a very chaotic process, but hopefully it works out and you get there in the end. I was going to say on the Royal Mint thing that you can buy the actual jewelry, but you can't actually, because none of us can afford it. But
it's true. They're making a line of jewelry that is manufactured from Exir processed gold,
recycled green gold.
Gold so from. Yes. I think it's very expensive. I know it is.
I circulated the brochure and there were no prices. Yeah. And my response to Alix was, my dad used to say that if you have to ask what the price is, then you can't afford it.
We have about 15 minutes left, Merle. Is there questions on the Zoom? Or?
Well, I'd love to be able to tell you that, but I'm having trouble finding the chat on my cell phone. So if anyone else is looking at Zoom and can see the chat, then that's great.
And I would also just point out that if you have questions for these interactive sessions, you should come to the session.
Yeah.
If you can.
Or Merle will bring your laptop so that she can ask.
Or Merle will bring.
Because, you know, I didn't bring my laptop today. Does anyone in the room have questions?
Students first. Our team had questions. That's where all those questions were from, people that I work with.
I guess like this might be a little bit before your time, but just getting that initial team, you were talking about how the two students, I guess, or was it researchers got with the professor.
Mm-hmm.
I guess part of it is just finding that initial team and finding people that are, you know, similarly motivated on the same goal and are, you know, wanting and willing to put in like enough effort to actually make something bootstrapped and like, you know, start up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not easy either. like a lot of this is sort of, yeah, exactly, serendipity of finding the right people at the right time. So I mean, and Steve, the guy who I'm sort of standing in for here today, would again probably be the first to tell you that he's number 3 on the team, right? It's the 2 guys in Iran were thinking about this and working on it, and they sort of ran into the limits of what they could do there, and so they were he was looking for graduate school in Canada to try to move further ahead. And So I mean, and he didn't know Steve Foley at the time, so he was just doing the graduate student thing where you the graduate student abroad thing, where you send out your emails to dozens of faculty members at places you want to go and say, you know, hi, this is me, this is where I come from, this is my background, this is what I'm interested in, what do you think? And it, like I said, it was a stretch for Steve in the beginning because he was a polymer chemist, not a organometallic chemist.
Because everybody in this room knows the difference.
Plastics versus metals.
Plastics versus metals. Yeah.
They specialize in chemistry like that. But Steve was sort of open-minded and also sort of, you know, young faculty looking for where his research program was going to go. And he thought, well, this guy seems to have a good idea. Let's get together and see what we can do. And it started out just as a graduate student supervisor relationship and doing the sort of fundamental research and grew out of that. But it doesn't always grow out of that, of course.
And I think finding those, finding like-minded people.
Yeah.
And finding at an early stage also somebody, so I think I heard that the person that asked the question, you're in the business school, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we had somebody else here who had to leave, but was in biochemistry, right? Yeah. So things like OPUS, things like SURE are the kinds of, one of our goals is to be able to connect people, because again, Hiwa and Logman and Steven needed somebody from the business school or needed somebody, with that business expertise to stitch together and just make that team stronger. And, that's kind of the nucleus of what these kind of programs try to do.
And this is a lot of the sort of reasoning behind why you get these entrepreneurial hubs like the Bay Area or Boston or wherever it is. That there's a lot of people in close proximity that are doing similar things and are thinking in similar ways, and they meet each other at coffee shops and bars and wherever, and it just sort of all kind of percolates
at SURE events.
At SURE events. At OPUS Mixers.
At OPUS Mixers.
That's great. Alix, take us home.
I feel like for a second I had an urge to burst into song. I didn't know what was going to happen.
That's the drum solo.
The drum solo. Thanks everybody who came here in person today. Thanks Merle for inviting us and having the vision to open up the SURE program to things like entrepreneurship and professional development. Thanks, Chris, for stepping in for Stephen Foley. Stephen Foley, thank you for all of the things you're going to do in future for me. Yes, this is recorded. So appreciate that. Yeah, look up SURE.
And next week? Summer. Oh, sorry.
For the lunch and learn, yes.
Yes, for the lunch and learn.
Next week, we have a super exciting topic with an entrepreneur he's an engineer at the university. And the topic we're talking with him about
From researcher to entrepreneur.
From researcher to entrepreneur. So he's at the stage where he would have been Steve or Hiwa or Logman, in the beginning. So he's just starting with an idea and a company. And what makes a researcher at a university decide that they want to start a company? So Samer, and he has a really cool technology. So we'll do this same thing next Friday with him. And I think between now and then there's other SURE.
Oh, there's tons. Yes. So we have John Mapletoft is coming on Monday to talk about intellectual property. And yeah, just 2 sessions next week, and both of them are in the entrepreneurship
stream.
Yep.
So next week, same place, same time.
Come on down.
Lots of audience.
Thanks so much, everyone, for joining online, and we will see you again. Everybody, big wave.
Yeah.
Bye.